Sensitive to it.
That's why I'm like, okay, Bill, an hour of this?
Like through the whole time trying
yeah, it would dissipate, of course, but
still.
it's just unpleasant.
Not a great way to start, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Nothing like the cat
we roll
smell,
it, Bill?
You know?
Yeah.
Yes, but
Cat smell.
My bad.
So we're only rolling on
That's Twitch.
What's it called? Twitch.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
And then Facebook.
So disrespectful of Twitch viewers, Bill.
They get the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
They clearly do.
You get the...
They can talk with us. They can chat with us because on Facebook and YouTube, it's more difficult to run the chat through the live streaming app. So I need like a separate person to handle all of that.
Yeah.
But through Twitch, it's easy. It pops up on the screen.
Vámonos. Okay, great, Bill. Well, come join us.
All right.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
So welcome to Two Floridian. And today we have a really special show. We're talking with Elena Øhlander. She's been an artist here in Jacksonville, painting paintings of all sizes, various types. We have some of them that we really like, as do a lot of our friends. So we wanted to have her on the show to kind of share her progression, how she's developed as an artist here in Jacksonville, and also how the art scene has developed from her perspective as she's seen it here in Jacksonville as well. So thank you for tuning in today, and welcome to this show. Elena, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for finding time when you're very busy.
We all have very busy lives.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, things are changing more rapidly than ever, I think. So the pandemic, I think, seemed like the biggest thing that ever happened. And then everything that happened after that continued to seem like the biggest thing that's ever happened. Now, AI is changing the scene of art. There's so many things going on. But let's start maybe at the beginning and tell us a little bit about how you started as an artist here and how you saw the art scene in Jacksonville at that point.
And just the very, very beginning, you were born here, right? Or
I've been in Jacksonville since '98, so I would say
it's like
most of my formative years are here. Even now is formative. So
yeah, I agree with that. It's like your whole life.
Pretty much.
Well, you're a young artist. I think those are two things that are absolute facts. And as a consequence, there's many things that will occur. And that's what's amazing is the progress you've made so quickly. So I'd love to know how that started.
Yeah.
I don't like the word progress. Sorry.
No,
how do you feel?
The word progress? Well, I think we're always in a state of evolution, which is good to consider being like somewhere in the process of something. And that's how I just look at it. It's not really necessarily progress, because sometimes I do regress.
Which is also a movement, therefore evolution, right? But I agree.
I always take it in perspective to one's own.
Sorry,
goals.
but I didn't mean to knock your progress down.
Well, I like it.
Yes.
Okay.
I like
I just want to make sure it's not like a little bit like,
Yeah.
Because
I don't consider it to be progressing from a bad place. I consider it to be progress from wherever you were to something that you chose to do. So to me, it's intertwined with accomplishing one's goals.
Let's go back to that.
Yeah, I don't think it's so polarized as that. But yeah, I think there is positive forward motion, which I like. But as far as where did it start, I think in my teenage years, I was mostly making art and exploring all the different mediums and figuring out who I am, what I want to say. And then it abruptly stopped. Like I was like going through life, working multiple jobs, had a kid young. So it was like my focus totally shifted. And then it became like, what is the thing that I can do to survive financially? And, art is so stigmatized that you're going to be starving. And it's so ingrained in our society that there's a fear to even try to pursue that as a career because you just don't want to be set up for failure. So, especially with a kid, it's like, what is the risk factors? Am I going to string her along, or am I going to provide some stability in her life? And then maybe later I can pursue that.
So that's amazing that you identify that so abruptly. That cuts right to the heart, doesn't it? I mean, I definitely think that that's a challenge that not only you experienced in your life, but that it ties into many sociological factors that we see. Because why should artists have to face this challenge? Why should mothers face this challenge? Sure. It's a fact that you do.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that you were able to find a path through that.
Yeah. I mean, I think at that time it was probably like 2006 or 7. That's when I really stopped. But there was like a different underground art scene kind of happening in Jacksonville at that time. I really subscribed to the old library, which is now like a philanthropic center, was like a main hub. You could go in the basement, ride the elevator up and down, and there would be like big art shows and installations and performances. And it was like really starting to grow. And then maybe it was like the economy with the housing market crashing, that bubble happening. Like a lot of things changed. I changed, my focus shifted. So I kind of moved away from arts and culture into like, I'm just now working all day, every day. So no chance to really be involved or even make time to create something. It was just survival mode. And then I decided, but I do want to have something more substantial than, the food and beverage industry, as much as I love that path. And I stayed in it until I was, about 28 years old. I decided to go for my undergraduate in photography. It felt like a more sustainable path. I remember walking into a classroom and one of the educators said, if you would like to photograph families and babies and boudoir and weddings, take $100,000 and get the fuck out. Because this is not the place for you. You go start your own studio. And I was like, what great advice. I'm still here. Because I don't want to photograph those things.
Right.
But I was like, maybe that's the only way to make money. I don't know, as a photographer. But it was a liberal arts education. And so I had the chance to kind of still do your fundamentals in art from like, I don't know, design concepts, color theory, drawing 1 and 2, like those sorts of things were still incorporated together with, the other prerequisites for life, like algebra or like things that are still important. So then, and when I was 28, I was still working food and beverage industry. I was working as like an atelierista at a micro school during the day, bar at night, and doing some management. And I was just tired. And my daughter was getting older, and I realized I had spent so much time working, with the help of my mother, of course, too, that I barely got to see her. I missed so many milestones in her life because I was trying to like be able to give her some stability. Right. And I was like, maybe I'm in a place where I can separate from that. And if I just had the opportunity to put all of these materials that have sat dormant in my life, markers, paints, whatever, brushes, put it in one room, then maybe I can do something with it. So then I quit my fucking jobs and I was like, I'm going to do this and I have no idea what's going to happen. Like maybe I'll make a living, but I truly thought I'm going to be back behind the bar or something in the food and service industry like very quickly. I thought there's no way. This is really difficult. I don't know the art community. I don't know if patrons will even care about what am I doing. So I that wasn't the case.
So was the trigger or trigger again? Also not a great word, maybe. But so was the last push that maybe made you finally realize, almost like on a physical level, that I want to give it a shot? Was it your daughter, or you were just like also getting fed up with the work you or the industry you were in?
I think it was an accumulation of everything. So it was like, I'm not really able to make my own schedule, so I can't really be involved in her life the way I would like to be. And as she's getting older, that's becoming more important for her life. Not that it wasn't before that, but more so because she's figuring out who she is, not just learning how to formulate words and things,
Right,
you know?
yeah.
So I think that was a factor, the schedule, the feeling like I'm not fulfilling something inside, and also like maybe something felt missing. Like if I'm not creating, then I feel like I'm not who I am. Like I'm not like my authentic self or something. Something's missing. Yeah.
The reason I asked, and not to be like, oh, I really want to like,
Please
it's
do.
just, I think a lot of people would relate.
Sure.
You know, just like you said, that there's a stigma around like being an artist, that you're gonna like, it's
Good
like you
questions.
have to meet a person, you know, and then that person is gonna make it. You have to meet an art dealer or whoever who will, you know, help you rise. And I think a lot of people like when is that moment? Like what, you know, so I think a lot of people would appreciate a lot of young, not age wise, but young as, you know,
Young
in their
in their
career.
career.
Yeah. So that's why like diving deeper a little bit.
I'd say, no, I think those are great questions. Those absolutely are wonderful questions.
So, because when we met, which was, I think, almost like 10 years ago, like at least like 8 years ago.
Was it that long ago?
Yes. Yeah. I remember I met you in Darina.
Wow.
Yes.
That was very long time ago.
In the bar. It was very brief.
Yeah.
And
Another world.
yes. Yeah. I was still back in fashion.
Yes.
And you was doing photography at the time.
Yes.
Because like this is how I knew of you as an artist. And then I remember you absolutely flipped the coin, so to say, of the medium,
Yeah.
or rather media.
Yeah.
Like you said, put everything in one room and let's see what comes out, right? And it was so special, unique. It was so, like you said, authentic. Not that photography was not, but those who are not familiar, it's a lot of self-portrait, right?
Yes.
It's predominantly, I think, self-portrait,
Yes.
in the form of narrative, but but so, do you want to share how that happened, if you can?
The
actually?
transition.
Yeah.
Give us the behind the scenes.
Yes.
We only know the exterior of this.
Yeah, I feel like when I was making these like investigative narrative self-portrait photography, it was really important for each image to be able to stand on their own, but then together tell like a larger breadth of the story. And when I would have exhibitions in relation to those works, I felt like people could connect to them to some degree, but the notion of identity and individuality and space and place, like these larger concepts within art that are very contemporary conversations, are maybe a little bit abstract for the community that I was like reaching to. And so I felt very isolated and felt like I'm not going to be able to like build a strong foundation off of this. It's the storytelling that's really important to me. And so taking that storytelling and just choosing a different medium wasn't difficult. Of course, having a background in painting and drawing probably helped, but, you know, making that transition was easier when I realized like this isn't the medium for me to tell the story in. And that's all it really was like, that's just not the medium for me to tell the stories I want to say, you know?
But is it true? And again, if it's a kind of borderline personal that you don't want
It's
to
okay.
talk about question, it's okay to say no. But is it also true that I just feel that the content or the message, the feeling of your photography, of your art in photography versus is it correct to say mixed media?
Sure.
Or painting,
Yeah.
drawing, right?
Now,
And then
recently,
collage.
it's been more painting solely,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay. So that's true. Because with last piece we have, it's actually predominantly painted, but there's still some collage.
That's right.
Also, the feeling has shifted. It's still a very feminine story, but I felt like in photography there was a lot of loneliness and kind of hopelessness.
Yeah.
While in your painting-based art, it's when you made that shift.
Yeah.
It is more of it's still a
Dreamy,
feminine.
right?
What's
It's not
that?
dreamy.
Well, dreamy one thing, both are dreamy because the photography was also very dreamy.
That's true.
It's more like that. It's not that now she's like da 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 da, little fairy. You know, it's still there's still a struggle. There's still like certain intensity, good in a good way about it. But it's a much stronger female character. Am I like making this up?
No, okay. I think that's an important thing to notice in the work is with that like positive forward motion, there's also been with the medium change an opportunity to, I don't know, have a reclamation of my childhood. That's something that I felt like I come from some trauma. So, reinvestigating those things and coming from a place of curiosity, utilizing all these different mediums from starting with watercolor and more simplicity, like line work, moving into a more kind of chaotic and very involved medium with collage and embellishments and like all these different things, epoxy resin, like I just kept growing. And now I'm at a point in the last year where really I'm only doing acrylic paintings. Like that's it. And I feel like it took me that long. Let's say I started really investigating in 2018 with those watercolor illustrations to now. It took me that long to get back to a place that I kind of was talking about in my photography, where there is a sense of isolation and loneliness, but it's brought the curiosity into it. And that's been a really interesting and fun place to, I don't know, navigate.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't find a better word than dreamy, because in a dream, you're the only one there. But there's also an influence from absolutely everything that comes in from around you in a way that gets represented in a mixture and gets, becomes a kaleidoscope. And especially the piece that we have, more so than most,
which one
is very dreamy. The biggest one, I should say, the biggest, largest one that we have.
I think it is the dream. It's the pink one with this cityscape in the background, and she's dreaming about those little Japanese characters.
Yes, with the peach.
Yeah, about. It's. I think it has like dream in the title, no, or something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those pieces, especially from that exhibition, were focused on like my processing of the subconscious mind through dream world. And so like differentiating that in your waking life is sometimes different when you're totally immersed in the studio all the time. So it's like there's no separation.
Right, yeah.
And so that contributes to that feeling of isolation. It may be a different type of isolation than maybe how I was feeling prior to going on the journey of switching mediums and finding my voice through that. But still very fun.
I like the facial expression.
You can see I'm like processing.
So you said in about 2018, it's only 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I know for you it feels long because you're like, it took me so long. But I'm like, it is 6 years, and it's not the easiest 6 years because we were through pandemic and such. But I'm just thinking, some people like go for so many years trying to, find that perfect. And it's just, I don't know, it feels so organic how you as a character, as a person, as a human being, and your art, just like it's such a beautiful union. And I think that authenticity and uniqueness of your art, that is so appealing. And I think maybe one of the core elements of your success as an artist.
Thank you. That's a lot because, it's hard to see outside of yourself and what you're doing. You don't even necessarily have an explanation for your why all the time, but it's so important to at least the academic world for you to justify your why all the time. So you're like looking for the language to describe the why, but you don't always have it, and so you just make shit up.
And you want to turn this off? Yeah. Phone's off.
And maybe that's true in the moment,
Right, yeah.
Like whatever you say isn't necessarily bullshit. It's true in that moment, but again, it's that ever movement that you can't really pinpoint and say this is exactly it all the time. So it's good that you can see something and tell me, and then I'm like, I didn't consider that thing.
Really?
Thank you.
I think it's so obvious. I mean, yeah, and I mean it's a very broad stroke to describe.
Yeah.
But to me, that's what kind of differentiate. Well, I don't want to use those like separating words, but this is where like I see that's Elena's piece. Even if it's not signed, if you're not standing next to it, I know that this is hers. You know, because it is so specific and unique as a language.
Thank you.
Yeah, and no, but thank you.
I'm honored to be. I feel very privileged to be able to say I didn't have to look back after that. And it's not that I don't want to be in the food and beverage industry, because it is something I'm really connected to. There is like plans for future things coming up that we can talk about under wraps until I actually do have the green light to speak publicly about it. But it does have to do with food and beverage. It does have to do with culturally specific cuisine. And that's all I can say.
Exciting.
Okay,
That's
this is
really exciting.
Just one word. Is it in Jacksonville?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Timeline? We're still in projection.
Let's
Within
not,
the
let's,
year.
not,
Okay.
let's not ask too many questions about the
Isn't that
secret stuff.
specific?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
Just to
within the
worry
year.
and just to,
So-
you know, like
Plus we
plant the seeds,
yeah, that's right.
put the crumbs so people...
Yes. Yes.
Plus we're still getting caught up to the present.
I promise not to cook you when you get there, like Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna leave the crumbs, you know.
Yeah.
Now it makes me think of the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover.
Oh yeah,
The movie? Such a crazy movie.
such a good one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ooh, what a plug. Also, this is like a really nice couch and decor.
Yeah. I think we have to plug somebody who gave us this couch, right? We have a sponsor for this couch.
Yes, this beautiful couch.
Yes.
Just
Lovely
sit in a more
couch.
comfortable way. This
Wow.
gorgeous couch was sponsored by a local business as well. It's called 5 Points Interiors. The website is 5points.com. If you need any help with decorating, redecorating, on-site remote services.
5 Points Interiors upgrades your interiors.
Love
And
it.
here we are.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's so and you can sleep on it. Like it
It folds out. So we
Anyway,
got
I
storage
mean,
in.
the company doesn't sell I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, they don't manufacture in this, but yeah, it was a good fit.
No,
It
it's a
was a
great
good fit,
choice.
yeah.
It was similar to our other couch too, which I like. So it fit the same scheme and pattern, but it's definitely
much
it's
better.
decidedly better.
Yeah, she recommended well. Anyway, back
You're
to
like
you.
you're like the Simpsons. We'll give
Sorry,
the couch will be its own character.
Oh yeah, that's true. Did you want to pick up on something because it felt like you had?
Oh yeah, so I
know
just
I was like,
I thought to ask a little bit about how you experienced let's say the art scene in Jacksonville is extremely diverse, and people's approach to it is also very diverse, and their opinions of it are very diverse.
Yes.
So I get a bit of this from the sense that you recognize the challenges that you were facing and let's say the chaotic nature of those waters that you were setting sail into. I'm curious how your perception was, your experience, let's say, of your reception in the art scene in Jacksonville, and how that may have changed or evolved from then to now.
Woo.
a lot.
I don't have spicy wings to hand you. That's my hot question.
Yeah,
That's my
no,
hot
it's a great question, and obviously, an important one. Because not only are you trying to navigate as an artist, no matter your medium, like what is it, who are you, what are you trying to say, and why, all of those things. In addition to that, you are trying to have a sense of community. We do spend so much time isolated, honing our craft. Having a sense of community and support is great and not necessarily essential, but I think it can be important in your life. So I suppose in the beginning, I think there was kind of a shock about me coming into the scene, especially because some people knew me prior to that. Like, oh, she's a photographer. Oh, she's a model. Oh, but the people who've known me really, really long knew that I was painting and drawing so long ago. So there's like a mixture of that. And people are always moving to Jacksonville. In fact, they're moving to Florida by troves because we're free down here. Okay. Gun wielding. It's the gunshine state.
Non-tax paying.
That too. There's no state tax. It's really interesting. It's very diverse indeed. And it continues to become more and more diverse as new artists that move from outside of the city come here and integrate into the ones who've established themselves here. So, what do I want to say? Gosh, I think my first perception was that Jacksonville is very much a crab pot mentality, that because it's like feels like there isn't a lot of opportunity, that if someone gets something, that means you lost something. And I don't think that that's true at all. I feel genuinely happy for people if they get something. And I think that maybe they were truly meant for that job or that, opportunity. But that's not always the case. And I think I've grown tougher and tougher skin around that. Like, okay, someone else's insecurities and inhibitions are not my responsibility to hold. And so like, I just moved through it and past it very quickly. That's not easy for a young emerging artist to, in their career, to navigate, because they might look up to someone and then be met with a wall, or, I've seen that happen a lot. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's very like easy mentor-y like relationship, and other times it's not. And that's very like discouraging for a young career artist. But I just think now, we have people who are like really seasoned and they're older and they have a lot of experience and wisdom and kind of been through and seen a lot. A lot of them are more isolated and they're looking at like retrospectives in their lives at this point, and then you have people in between who are like mid-level career artists who may even still be emerging in terms of, nationally or internationally, but locally have really made an impact. So I see those artists really kind of taking the younger generation, no matter their age in their career, to say like, hey, I'm here to help. I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. I want to help you have less pain and suffering if I can. So it's an interesting community. I think it's evolved, especially since after COVID too. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. In what sense?
So. I think that, because COVID had so many things happening, but in particular, the way that we socialize or interact with art has affected not only the way artists like have narratives within their work. I've noticed a shift in that. It's very like dystopian, isolated, sad, depressed, and like there's a lot of escapism, like fantastical things. I mean, I think that's where it leans into AI a little bit more. But then
that's a good. Sorry, that's a good point. I just never really like thought about it, but yeah, it's a very good observation, like culturally, anthropologically.
It's interesting.
Yeah, instead of stories about us and things that have a very common link, there's a lot of stories about end of the world.
Yes.
Well, even if it's
dragons
about,
and
the fantastical, I think, is a good
And then in addition to that, because we were not able to gather in groups so easily in comfort without concern for our health, the outdoor gallery became very prominent in people's lives. So public art became really important and valuable. And what art means to people had shifted. Like there was like a resurgence of like, oh, maybe they were not feeling so maybe welcome in like white wall gallery spaces. Traditionally, they're not necessarily as accessible. It's like, oh, if you're not buying something, why are you here? Kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, they always have the door closed. Yeah. Like weird to come in. Now have to buy 10,000
Yeah. And it's like, oh, like, but you want to come in and enjoy the art because like that's essentially the purpose of why the artist is doing the thing. I hope. I mean, I don't come from a place of like, I must make money, right? I love what I do no matter what.
Well, one person needs to buy it so you can make another
That would be great.
But if a million people see it, like the bakery that says, come in, free smells. I mean, that's
Jimmy John's.
Yeah,
Free loop.
that's right. I mean, that's what you want. You want as many people to see it as possible. And the value of art comes from its exhibition.
Yes, it's very impactful. And so having public art, I think, was an interesting shift as well, not just in my career, but just in general. I've seen a lot of things change in interaction. So I think I lost track of what we were talking about.
No, it's also on point. That
It changes in the art
how
scene.
do you
Yeah,
navigate
that's right.
the market?
I think it's brilliant. I mean, so many people find a challenge that they think is insurmountable, and this is where many artists, I think, struggle. Is that you struggle until it's done, but eventually you have to find a path through it. If you're determined, and if it's going to be something you're going to be successful, then there must be a path that you will find. And I think it's really great that you were able to find yours in what, I'm sure for you, seemed like a very long journey from, as a patron of your arts, seemed very rapid. Of course, looking at it as a progression in this process, it seemed very quick. And we really appreciate both your early pieces and the pieces you make now. And we like to see how you've navigated these waters, and I think it's a great benefit to others as well to hear a very applicable success story, and also that for you the art wasn't an escape from food service. You weren't a depressed waitress going, "Oh, if I can get out of here and just get to Hollywood." You know, you were an artist who was a server. You enjoyed, being a server. You progressed through that into crafting your skill into something that it became for you a greater expression of your own, of what you wanted to convey to society through your own development and your life. And I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And now, like, from what you secretly shared, it kind of feels like both
it comes together
into a beautiful manifestation that we're gonna observe soon, hopefully in a year.
Yeah, and I think also, like, when I take a look at past experiences, whether that was a job for the sake of survival, for the sake of I had like a lack of education, having access to other jobs, like maybe in the corporate world, so easily would not have been easy for me to do. I would have to start at the bottom, be on the phone, like do things that I didn't really see myself wanting to do. I think those experiences lend themselves to my daily operations as an artist. I think the perception of artist is like, oh, it must be great. You get to paint all the time and you do what you love, And I'm like, yeah, but I work fucking hard for that.
Yeah.
And actually I spend more time out of the studio than in the studio. And so the time that I do have is hyper-focused and very, very important. Doesn't mean I'm not doing the work in my mind or research or in my dreams, because I do dream about my work and then feel disappointed that I woke up to this reality and the work is not done. Like maybe I changed it in my dream. You're like, oh man, but I know what I'm doing, at least. But yeah, those experiences maybe in the food and beverage industry prepared me for navigating many, many different types of personalities, and so that's socially very important when you're doing any kind of business, because art is a business. Every artist is their own business. And that's such a strange notion for people to kind of grasp, whether they come like from self-taught or they go to, school for it. It's not necessarily something talked about in school.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree.
It's just not. And I think that there could be more like art as a business courses that would set, these young artists up for success as they move through their career. Like not everyone's going to be in academia,
Yeah, or until eventually you get like your art dealer who has your back, and then you can just spend time in the studio, create.
I think the biggest challenge is that sorry.
No, for it.
You're like the opposite in the way of a doctor, because a doctor goes to people who are sick and like you're in an emergency situation and they can just like extort whatever from you. And you're like, whatever, like here it is. Instead, you're like, here's something, that I produced that you can be healthy if for these concepts, these ideas, these have been, processed in this way that I can show you and share and communicate this.
Poor doctors.
Poor doctors. Extortionists. Every single, no, not really. I don't feel, there's so many doctor friends. I don't feel
gonna start losing subscribers though right now. All the doctors gonna exit.
All the doctors. No, I'm not saying that all
They've
doctors
left
are.
the chat.
Yes.
That's right. But it's like you people don't know, they don't have a sense of urgency. Yeah. And so art often comes out of the sense of, I have extra money. What am I going to do to put something on my wall?
Sure.
As opposed to a sense of immediacy. And that makes the market of it very challenging. It requires exhibition. It requires, you have to have so many people appreciate it. Whereas if you, in medicine, you need one person to be like, oh, that's better. Thanks.
I've never heard this comparison before, but I'm gonna give it some credence. Like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm really not against doctors at all.
Absolutely necessary individuals in this world.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of considering the market, I think it's
of course, yeah.
It's like a mortician. We're all going to die, so it's a great career to choose. Lots of work to do.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, it's actually, there is, again, speaking about stigma, some stigma in the Western mind and the Western mentality about death, right? There's certain kind of
Bill, what is that? I don't want to talk about death.
Right. It's something that, exactly, and you kind of what do I say when someone...
Yeah.
Apart from, I'm really sorry for, sorry, whoa, this is weird. How did we end on this topic? The reason I'm talking about
we always get dystopian in the end.
There's this beautiful Japanese movie called The Departures.
Okay.
The Departures, I think.
Departures.
Departures, maybe without. And it is about the art of preparing the human body, for the funeral ritual. And it's just so gorgeous. And there is that whole narrative of that stigma and how there shouldn't be any, and how it's a part of life. Yeah. And for the people who stay, it's a part of their experience of that, of the loss of someone else's life, right? And it can be absolutely beautiful and lyrical and poetic. Anyway, just because it's also part of art, so anyways, smiling like this. But
I'm just curious to see where we're going with this.
Well, it's just because we were talking about doctors, and then But I wanted to talk about struggle.
It's interesting because what runs through my mind is whether or not I've always thought that the deeper purpose, and just I don't know if other people feel this way, but for me, the deeper purpose of all art is catharsis.
Sure.
Whether it's in the comedy or the tragedy, whether it's expressing something through the possession of the intellect or of the heart, in one way or another, it's somebody saying, "Here was my experience. I can share it with you, and you might have some catharsis from this experience that otherwise you felt that you had alone."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
Yeah, I think it's...
We have it from an official artist, so now it's
endorsed.
Yeah,
validated.
Right. But I wanted to go back to struggle part because, you mentioned that briefly, you kind of referred to that, and I'm sure every single artist tell us more about
tell us about the struggle.
The struggling.
So that
how do we get around the struggling?
Well, it is relatable.
Yeah,
and it's not even art. It's pretty much any when you go independent, right? That struggle is inevitable.
Unless you live in Amsterdam.
Yeah, why?
In Amsterdam, you can go to school and you can study. I met a lot of people who were movie producers, and I was at all these movie producers' houses. I'm like, how are you guys all movie producers?
Yeah.
They're well, we all love movies.
But
so when we went to school, no, they do.
Oh.
They get jobs from the government. So the government has a lot of movie producers working for them.
Public announcement
because
type of movie.
Yeah. Dutch government ads are through the roof awesome. They're amazing. Because when you go to university, now I'm summarizing, of course.
Sure.
But when you go to university,
it's 20%
in the Netherlands, everything is sponsored, so you can study whatever you want to study. There's no, and if you want to be an artist, you can just be an artist. You're just like, that's what I studied, and now that's what I do. And the government's going to pay you something because every
like
Dutch citizen, and then they're going to give you some amount of jobs. You don't necessarily make a lot, but they'll be like, here, do this,
be
and
an artist,
because they have to pay you because every Dutch citizen is guaranteed income and housing and medical care.
Okay.
So except for Holland, the one thing they can't make in Holland though is hip hop. They kept trying to call the music hip hop, and I'm like, but you don't understand one of the elements of hip hop requires a struggle, and you don't have it. So.
Struggle, plugging back into struggle. The time outside the studio, right? That you said that you spent actually more time not in the studio.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
All my Dutch words.
Let's go there.
Let's dig in. Yeah. Just to, I guess maybe we don't have to but what were the greatest challenges for you within those 6 years, from when the shift happened, and you started experimenting with the new medium and then the present day?
I think lots of things. One of them, yes, is finding a good balance because, when you work for yourself, it feels like you can work 24/7 and still never finish your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your threshold for each day, or what does your self-care look like? How do you navigate your time management skills? Is sleep important to you? We know that it's essential, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people less and some people more, but at the end of the day, it's necessary to reset and, give your body time to work at its most efficient,
Did you have any particular mentors or people who maybe helped you align that or see how that path might work out?
Well, I had mentors in many different capacities. Some for very short stints of time and some for the long haul. Most of which have a lot to do with maybe mural making. That's the biggest, at least most prominent mentorship that stands out to me as something that I've carried with me through since that mentorship started. So, and that started in 2020, interestingly.
And who is that with?
Nicole Holderbaum, or they go by Nico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it because of the format and the specificity, that it's always outdoors and such and such?
Yeah, I think there's, it's one of those things that, yes, you can learn by doing, but also there are so many tricks. There's so many rules to navigate sometimes in public art, whether we're talking about a government funded projects or we're talking about straight street art, and understanding the history of that is so important, and a lot of people skip over that, and not knowing kind of the graffiti world and all of the history and associations with it are so important to respect and understand before you just I'm on the street, I'm making a mural, and then this person next to me is making a graffiti piece that they've been doing for 20 years, and honing their
when
craft.
Graffiti became a font?
That's interesting.
It was so strange because you would see the weirdest stuff online where they would be using things where no one on the West Coast would ever say or do whatever they were putting in the font that's obviously from West Coast graffiti. And
okay.
You can't really homogenize the thing. It's interesting that was a thing.
There's certain tags and certain things, and you could see that they'd been incorporated into these fonts. So you could write now whatever you want in them very easily, and they got used in advertising and things like that. And I'm like, I don't think you're.
What time period?
I don't think that memes what you think it memes.
Memes.
But yeah, I think one of the struggles there is balance, right? Finding mentorship that really is going to not only see things that you cannot see yourself and motivate you and inspire you to keep going, or to teach you more in your craft, a skill set truly. Like, for example, if I were to say I picked up a can to spray paint something, like, I felt like Bambi, like a little baby born deer, just cannot do anything.
What is this?
Like just all over the place, like, you know. But with time and with guidance, it was like, oh, now I understand the tools and how to use them and actually look at this as an extension of my hand, which there's a separation between your substrate and your hand and the material. So it's like, it's not tangible. You're not feeling any pressure. It's just totally different. So, yeah.
Had you ever used an airbrush before, or it was your first experience with the whole spraying process?
I used an airbrush before, but also like Bambi. So it was like not a skill set that I was familiar with.
You were used to brush strokes.
And, you know, and that was not like used for the sake of like creating a picture. It was like creating a texture with airbrushing. So it was a completely different approach. I wasn't using it in my art for that purpose. Like Gunpla, Gundam figurines, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a whole separate hobby world.
Yeah. So what's the...
Are you into Gundam?
I am into them. I have not been building for several years now. No time to game, no time to build.
Do you have an
Not
extensive
even time
Gundam
to
collection?
leisurely read.
Have you built
I
quite a
have
few?
some. I have some, but it siphons your money too. So it's like, how do you want to spend your money?
Oh, and they take quite a while to put together.
Yeah.
Some of them can be extremely extensive. I mean, like, you'll spend weeks putting these things together.
Yes, it's a very meticulous thing.
Some you can do in most days, but
Still days.
Still, it's a commitment of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Balance.
Struggle. I mean, mental health. I think that's important, you know, that lends itself to the self-care thing, but also like, because you're being vulnerable all the time in your work, you're sharing work publicly, you're having exhibitions, you have a social media, you're open to the scrutiny and the safety of people behind a screen. So they can just say whatever they want, you know? And so that becomes difficult.
I think it's amazing that you've been able to continue to be open and also continue to encourage other artists through that difficulty, because it can cause many to shut down.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great that although you realize that there's a whole array of different people, which means different responses, you're still able to have an openness with new artists and encourage other people and show a different way versus this, crab pot mentality.
Well, I'm actually curious because I think it's a very important point, especially for the areas of creativity, whether it's writers or filmmakers, artists, visual artists,
Sure.
That vulnerability, or rather even, let's put it, sensitivity to criticism, right? Whether it's positive or negative.
And Dutch artists too.
In Dutch. Are they paying you like under the table?
Yeah, that's right.
The Holland, the Dutch
Well,
government.
actually, I didn't mention, but it did dawn on me afterwards. Maybe it's why it's subconsciously in my mind. We have a friend of mine from Amsterdam who's helping us with the show now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his name is Mike.
Okay.
But I didn't think of it before. But yeah, it's funny that it came to mind afterwards. After I was like talking about, they don't have hip hop, blah blah. They have rap, of course, but just not
Right.
hip hop strictly by the definition of hip hop.
Sure.
Because of the 5 elements of hip hop.
But
Sure.
yeah,
But
so I mean, it and there are stories with very famous artists as well, where certain critique would kind of almost destroy them.
Sure.
At least pause them for a good minute,
Yeah.
right? Or completely. I mean, everything I guess has that silver lining that would maybe change the narrative or change the way they express themselves. How do you have like any, like, you don't have to go again very like, you don't have to give away your
can
secrets if you don't
Ask
want.
me anything.
But what's like maybe your tips, your recommendations, or your little tricks? How to, because it is so, as you said.
How would
right?
you tell artists, for example, to approach the market if you want to answer that? How would you tell them, how to approach the market in terms of finding enough patrons or revenue, or do they need to split their time and make it, to where they need to do multiple things? What would you recommend for artists, coming in, taking that plunge that you took?
I think there's no one path. And I think that's what's most difficult is like maybe the things that worked for me may not work for your path.
That's a good point.
And that's okay. But still, there are some little bit more universal things that I think are important to note. Like, for example, if it is constructive criticism, good, bad, however you want to digest that information, it's up to you to like look in the mirror every day and accept and appreciate who you are and like not allow others to infiltrate that negative energy, but also like be open that you are constantly evolving. And so like maybe those words might be worth consideration and just deeply inspect, always like look inward, like, oh, what am I doing that I could, improve on in some way or not? Like just the notion of doing that process, whether someone says something to you or not, is a great way to have checks and balances. I think about it in my work all the time. Like, let's say I'm in the studio, I made like 3 new pieces. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to go out there in the world on exhibition. How has it changed from, my last works that I made in succession? And like, am I getting closer to what I want to say? Am I considering the viewer? Does it even matter? Like I can't answer those questions for someone else. Like they have to ask it and then answer whatever their answer is. So
come to Elena Øhlander.
Answer those questions.
She'll help you answer those questions on it. That's right.
Yeah.
But no, that's a very good point. I agree with that. That is actually quite logical. I, for example, as an artist, turned out that I wanted to do something totally different because I didn't want to, as a DJ, which was most of what I did to earn a living. I got tired of waiting around till 4 a.m, and I was like, well, there's no way around this. This is part of being a DJ. The bigger and the better shows I do, the more I'm going to be waiting outside of some producer's office for the cash because I don't want to leave until I know I have it.
Yeah, in the end.
And I thought, I'm just tired of that. And I decided now I'm doing something that's quite similar. I'm basically DJing all that stuff over here.
Sure.
So we can do this show, and I like it much better.
Yeah.
It's because I like working with equipment and technology to facilitate communication to help others. And I enjoy that a lot, even though I view myself as an artist. I really, in my world, everybody I know does everything I do better than me, and I love it. I know amazingly talented people, and there's many things I'm into, but I'd rather, when people go, wow, I like that, I'd be like, oh, let me show you a friend of mine. It's something really cool.
Yeah. So it's almost like, speaking of balance, like you were saying, like balancing, your restorative time, your family time, your professional time, your creative time. It's almost like going back to that criticism and how to navigate or process it with most benefit. It's almost like that balance within your ego where you still maintain a healthy amount of ego, so it's your identity, it's your uniqueness, right, as an artist, but at the same time not that the same ego to get very offended, right, from we talked about this morning, but chemically, and that's a fact. We had some information about non-factual statements in this podcast, but this is a fact that chemically, physiologically, emotions last about 1.5 minutes, about 90 seconds. So if you feel like anger, or if you feel like, disappointment or deep, frustration with this critic. Yeah. It only actually lasts 90 seconds in your body. After that, your bloodstream completely flushes out whatever was released to create that response. And then it's absolutely mental. Yeah. If you give meaning, if you give a story to that emotion, and that it lives on. And that it lives on, it becomes like a part of your experience.
It becomes your truth.
So it's like, again, going back, like, do I want like just 90 seconds, like, I hate this? And there's like, fine. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of inner work. That's great. Yeah.
Well, that's what was my other thing about struggle was self-discipline. I think that comes back to same thing where like no one is going to make your schedule for you or tell you to look for these opportunities these ways or to show up in the studio and do the work no matter the deadline. Like if you miss it, you miss it, and that's on you. And you probably are going to be starving artist very quickly because you don't have the self-discipline. So I think that's what I also mean in terms of balance is to have self-discipline. That, you know, there's no professor who's going to be like, next week, give me this by midnight on Monday. There's no parent who's going to be like, hey, do this thing, clean your room. You know, like you have to be self-disciplined.
Right.
Yeah. And that's difficult.
And I think also because like we are again fed through different media like films and books, that idea that a lot of very famous artists, they're like, I don't know, very rock and roll.
This myth of discovered.
Style.
This myth
that
of
like
the
they're
artist
like
gets discovered.
drinking to, you know, oblivious and then suddenly paint like the most. It's like, yeah, maybe there are such occasions, but it's a lot of hard work and discipline.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing this up because I feel like that's a very important thing. You can't do both.
Yeah.
At a sustainable period of time.
You can.
I think it's a myth that artists, if you're discovered, it's because if you're discovered at all, it's because you put yourself out there over and over and over and over again until the function of coincidences eventually occurred that you met somebody who helped you maybe. But that's not, but that's still a function of as an artist putting yourself out there again and again and again and again and again. Nobody's knocking down people's doors going, come here and make some art. Be great. I know you're great.
Yeah.
So
a friend of a friend told me you said something at a party, and now I want you to.
So going back to the discovery, do you feel like you had a pivotal moment in your career as an artist that like you've like discovered or you felt that like, yeah, that this is the timeline, not in your own expression, right? Like not in the artistic expression, but that
from the outside world.
Yeah, from the outside world that was pivotal or like, I guess
inspirational.
Not inspirational, but significant. That like turned the waters in the direction you wanted to go, flow. Yeah.
I think oftentimes when something would occur that maybe would lend itself to this, I don't realize it as a milestone in the moment. Like I'm just living it. And then maybe much later, I reflect on it and say, oh, that was actually a significant point in my career that I didn't recognize because I'm too busy looking forward. Right? I'm like, oh, but I still have these deadlines. Like right now, I think my timelines are planned out 1 to 2 years in advance. And everything else, there's room to plug in. But for the most part, I mean, that's as far as my calendar is already going. So it's like, and it's been that way for a while. So I have to look forward to what am I doing next when I finish something. It's that to-do list still.
Right.
So, but when I think about, you know, pivotal moments, when not just like the aha in the studio, like, oh, I'm taking a shift in my work and I think it's elevating me to the next closest level to my truth. It's more like, oh, my work just got part of this corporate collection. That's obviously important because these people are going to walk by that every day and it's going to add some something substantial to my resume or CV.
Value to the exhibition.
Yeah. So that, or even where I've exhibited, you know, those things kind of happened and I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. I've always wanted to exhibit there. But then I do the thing and then later I'm like, holy shit, that was cool and kind of important. You know, like I always wanted to do that, but like in the moment I don't feel that excitement. Like, this is important and it's gonna take me to the next level. I don't know it
You're
until
just doing
after.
the tasks. You're like, I gotta do this tomorrow, then I gotta do this.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, you know, anyone else how they process that, but that's how I do. I mean, I think when I first started in 2018, my first goal was I want to show in LA. I want to show my work in LA. I think it's really important. I think my demographic makes sense there. Maybe I do a lot of my work with intention. In my story, there's a lot of symbolism. But like over there, the community, I think, already has some natural education based on the diversity of the community that lives there to connect to the work. Yeah. So like I don't have to explain so much. Like they look at it and they're like, I get it. Holy shit. Can't believe she did that. You know? Whereas I'm explaining myself a lot in other instances, which is also good. It's not like one is, you know, more valuable than the other, but I like had my eyes set on LA, you know? Yeah, and I've shown there for the last 2 summers in like a very substantial place called La Luz de Jesus Gallery. It's a large group show. I hope to one day have maybe a more substantial solo exhibition there. But, you know, it's the steps.
Right. That's so cool.
That lead you to that place, you know?
That's a vision board. That's a vision board.
Yeah. We all have that, you know?
LA has an amazing art scene.
Yeah. Well, we have just a couple of few.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Speaking about looking forward, what we should look forward? Yeah.
Would you like to give anything you want to particularly mention or plug? Or
upcoming excitement for us
this year. And I've slowed down a lot in my process, in my work. Mostly so I can be really hyper intentional when I'm in the studio making. And right now I'm really kind of focused on this notion of like childhood, girlhood play, toys, how they lend themselves to like gender identity. And is it culturally specific? Is it worldly? Does it matter? When does the shift happen of like being identified as one gender over another outside of being assigned your physical, anatomic things. So I'm like investigating that in the studio right now, but also I applied for 3 things, and that's what I mean when there's work outside of the studio is you apply for grants and residencies and fellowships. So I applied for an apprenticeship and I applied for two fellowships. Both would take me, actually all 3 would take me to Japan. So I heard back from the apprenticeship. They want me after 3 interviews. I have to pay to do it, which is okay. But so I'm working toward raising the funds for that for over the summer. And if I do it, I'll be gone for 2 months. And it's a kintsugi apprenticeship. So it'll be pottery based. There's a lot of field trips where you learn the true traditional methodology and the history. And you work in the studio pretty much through the whole thing. It's
amazing. I know that influenced your work some time ago. Some of the pieces we have were influenced by this process quite sometimes. So that would be amazing to see you take that full cycle.
So
and I want to add one thing. One thing I gotta say, right, only because you mentioned the thing. I find it fascinating that before around 1920 or so, maybe 1930s, in America, and as well as most of Britain and a lot of the English-speaking world, boys and girls were raised in dresses. Did you know that? If you look at all the old photos, boys and girls were wearing dresses. They didn't bother
like bonnet thing,
identical clothing because they didn't bother to separate them until they got older because they were going to mess it up, wear it out, grow out of it, and clothes were more difficult. They didn't have a Walmart to go and get unfortunately produced items.
True. They are passed down family heirlooms. Typically.
That's right.
So you mentioned the summer. So let's do this. How can we help you get to Japan?
I don't know. I've been asking myself that question because the email came like 2 mornings ago.
Oh, wow. Okay,
and so it's very fresh. And so I'm like, I have no idea what to do, but I really want to make this happen. So
do you have any like shows, exhibitions, one-day pop-ups, anything coming up?
There's a women's art exchange coming. It's this Saturday at the Phoenix Arts District. So it's a pop-up event that involves dance and visual art and music. And it's focused on women for the Women History Month or something like this. Or maybe it's just women specific. Actually, I'm not sure. I feel a little embarrassed. but but I know that I'm showing there, so
And
I'll
there's
do a
women
pop-up.
involved.
There's a lot of women with an X for the A or E. Women identifying
Okay.
artists. This
And that's a Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, in the evening.
In the evening.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
It's called WAX, Women Art Exchange. Yeah, at Phoenix Arts District.
I can only attend it in VR because in VR I sexually identify as people's moms.
Okay. Good for you.
So find him in the VR world, everyone.
My name is your mom in VR.
Yeah. That's cute. Very endearing.
Where can we find updates if people want to go see, support you?
Yeah.
Is it mostly on your Instagram website?
Yeah, mostly my Instagram is where I put most of my upcoming events or substantial things that I think people might want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a channel. I guess you can have that on Instagram now, where you can communicate massively with all of your followers, like an update. So I do update when I have something to update.
Cool. And it's also through Instagram, so you're going to put the handle. And if anybody wants to buy your art, do they just contact you directly and you will direct them?
At this time, because I don't have a substantial exhibition forthcoming, things are available straight from my studio.
And on your website also, right? Which the
I
link
actually
is...
took that down, my shop,
Okay.
because it's like very difficult. It's like an extra job.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I leave less jobs.
Yeah.
So sorry, everybody, but you can see my portfolio on there. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But then if you want to buy something, just direct message.
I have a contact form on there. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really. Thanks for your time today.
Yes.
I was listening to Big in Japan just this morning.
Ooh,
It's interesting.
so many synchronicities.
It is a lot of synchronicities.
It's meant to be.
Yeah. It's the eclipse.
To
It's the-
Florida.
And the earthquake.
To Floridian.
It's the eclipse quake.
All right. You want to say goodbyes?
Yes. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And I hope you can check out Elena's work. Help her get to Japan.
Yes, let's
help
help. Yeah,
Help Elena get to Japan. And thank you so much for stopping by the studio today. And now we can go have some lunch and discuss super secret stuff.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I was thinking hawkers. Do you like hawkers?